If you've ever stared at your Ableton, you've gone to the audio effects section and you've looked at this long list of different options and you don't even know where to start. I'm gonna give you my top 5 Ableton Live audio effects that I use all the times for different things like music production and a lot of sound design as well. And if you stay till the end, I got something free to give to you that'll make use of kind of an underutilized aspect of Ableton Live. I'll see you at the end. All right, my first audio effect that I love to use is Echo. Echo is a digital and analog delay device. I had been using the normal delay effect plugin, which still exists, and then they had a different delay plugin. I think it was called Digital Delay maybe, but it was just a different type of delay plugin. And they came out with Echo, and this one changed the game for me as far as using delays because of not only the different sounds that come in it, but also the ability to manipulate the delays with filters built into the plugin, add a little bit of reverb into the plugin, change the modulation of the delays, add a bunch of different characters. Like I end up using the ducking section over here in the character tab a lot for ducking it against different delays. You can give it kind of this like side chained kind of sound built into the delay. I think it's super awesome for things like guitars, vocals, delay throws, different effects. If you're using a lot of splice samples and you want to give it some extra character rather than just dropping a splice sample onto your timeline, I think Echo's a super great way to go. But unfortunately, it is only in Ableton Live Suite. So if you have intro or standard, it is not going to be there for you. However, number 2 for me is in Ableton Live Standard and Suite, and that is the multiband dynamics section. This is a multiband compression audio effect, most famously noted for the OTT preset, meaning over the top. And it does some crazy stuff. I've used this to mix vocals with. I've used this to make crazy sound design stuff, turn pianos into crazy synths, or once again, like finding interesting one-shots or melodic loops and turning it into something brand new using multiband dynamics of audio effect and a lot of the OTT preset as well. Doing some crazy stuff to the low end, high end. And if your 808's not hitting right, this is the plugin to use. Use that low end knob and get that low end to hit right. The third audio effect I want to talk about is in Ableton Live Suite, and it is a relatively newcomer to the Ableton Live system. That is hybrid reverb. It is both a convolution and algorithmic reverb in one plugin. I believe this also replaced the previous convolution reverb audio effect, which was its own standalone thing. Now you can do that and add other reverb blended into it with this hybrid reverb plugin. You can, do EQ things in post built into the plugin, but also you have this convolution IR section. You can load in your own stuff. You have tons of different options there, as well as the algorithmic section here, and you can change all sorts of different parameters with that. This vintage knob is really cool. You can give it extra stereo width, which is really, really fun for different like vocal throws and effect throws and stuff like that. Algorithmically, it gives you dark hall, quartz, shimmer, tides, and prism for different algorithmic reverbs. And the freeze knob does some really interesting stuff, especially on the sound design effects side of things. You can get some really unique sounding reverbs with this that I don't know if you can really find in any other plugin. That's why I love it the most. It's super unique to Ableton Live. Now, number 4 is honestly a sound designer's dream. This is for Ableton Live Suite, and it is the spectral time audio effect. This thing is super cool. I think when it was originally introduced, I kind of assumed it was just going to be some sort of delay plugin, just kind of, an updated, cool, extra delay plugin. And I was so wrong with that, because you're dropping this thing into a freezing function, a delay function, doing some reverb spreading and some time spraying. They have like a spray knob right here that kind of does this cool like spreading out of it. This freeze knob does a bunch of really cool stuff. It grabs like a tiny slice of the section that's being played currently, and then you can continue to manipulate it and create some crazy cool interesting sounds with it. But if you're really trying to add some like interesting metallic-y sounds or some pitch shifting movement using delay effects, the spectral time audio effect is just incredible. And honestly, between this and like the hybrid reverb that I mentioned before, if you're a sound designer, these two are going to be integral into your workflow as far as building interesting new sounds. And if you're a beat maker and you use a lot of splice loops, or you buy loops offline, or you buy one shots offline, and you're trying to make something new and interesting out of these things that a lot of people have access to, these two plugins are going to be amazing for you to create something super unique that doesn't feel just cookie cutter like everybody else has. And before we get to the fifth and final plugin, I want to shout out the utility plugin, which is honestly mad underrated and is on obviously every single iteration of Ableton Live, Intro, Standard, and Suite. It's incredible for giving you the ability to do some really interesting things with monoing the bass out, and you can change where that actually happens with this slider below the bass mono button. You can switch something from stereo to mono, but you can also add width, and you can do panning and gain automation in this plugin. And if you've ever had an instance where you've been mixing in Ableton, which I do occasionally, and you've been like, well, I want to automate the volume on some stuff, but I don't necessarily want to automate the actual volume fader because I want to be able to control the overall volume of the entire track, but I need to automate a singular section. Using the utility plugin and using the gain section of the utility plugin at the end of your chain will actually give you a secondary way to automate weird little volume automations and panning automations of things that need to go hard left, right, or do some interesting panning. Like I said, everything in the utility plugin is automatable. So you can actually automate the width as well. So you can have some stuff feel more narrow, and then maybe in like a chorus or a bridge or a more open space, you want to like widen it over time, or maybe as like a build happens or some sort of like, you know, build to a drop, like you're widening some effect that's like gonna end up like collapsing back in on itself. There's some really interesting stuff that you can do with utility, and I couldn't make an Ableton effects video without shouting out the utility plugin. May seem a little basic, but incredibly useful, especially if Ableton is your main way of creating music. The last thing I want to talk about in number 5 is actually a twofer. It actually is 2 plugins or 2 audio effects in one kind of bundle, and that is the amp and the cabinet audio effect. And the reason I have these together is because up until probably last year, maybe 2 years ago, I used to use the amp effect a little bit, and I never quite understood because it never really sounded good. And then one day, I think I was either watching a video or talking with someone about like different audio effects in Ableton, and they were like, yeah, the cabinet is supposed to pair with the amp. But the reason they separate it is in case you have an IR loader and you want to load your own amp IR and not use theirs. You have, you know, the head separate from the cabinet so that you can, you know, put stuff in between it. It's a little more modular that way. And I never really even thought about the fact that those two things were supposed to go together. And the moment I paired the cabinet with the amp plugin, it's changed everything for me. I've started using this stock stuff for guitar all the time. It sounds so good in my opinion. And no wonder they partnered with Softtube to make the amp plugin. I just am so amazed with how good this sounds. If you want to try it for yourself and you do have Ableton Live Suite, I have a free gift for you, which is a guitar rack ready to go with a lot of different effects, all built using Ableton stuff. It is actually for free. If you want to check the link in the description, It is essentially an amp and pedal board combo built for Ableton Live, specifically for you to use, especially if you're doing a lot of like indie pop or rock stuff. You need some clean guitar things. It's also really fun to run synths through as well. I'm telling you, it is an incredible combo, and I'll show you a little bit of it right here. So if you want to pick up this guitar rack that I showed you, the link will be in the description. You can go download it for free and load it right into your Ableton session. It'll be ready to go. I hope this gave you some ideas. Grab a splice sample that you think might be kind of boring or even interesting, throw it in, loop it, and just start messing around with all of these audio effects on it. See what you can kind of come up with. I continually come back to these 5 that I mentioned, even including the extra utility plugin. Go check these out. Grab that free rack in the description. Oh, but wait, but if you're new and you're kind of interested in Ableton Live and you're not sure which one to get, the intro, the standard, or the suite, I have a video right over here that kind of walks through each difference of each version, kind of which one might be the best for you. And so if you have any confusion on those, go check out that video over there, and I hope that'll help you out. I'll see you over there.